When you're a teenager, you tend to do stupid stuff. Even the wisest ones sometimes mess up, just like my brother. My brother Winston was always so well behaved and smart. He was the perfect child. Winston and I only had a year of difference. I'm actually older than him, and according to my parents, I'm a total screw-up. However, Winston was the absolute opposite. He learned how to walk and speak faster than any other kid. He was eloquent and clear. And at 2 years old, he was already reading and writing. At 4 years old, he was already solving high schooler math problems. Winston was brilliant. He was every parent's dream. But there was a problem. Kids don't care about being smart. They care about you being funny and cool. And that's why I was more popular than Winston. The two of us were always in the same classroom despite me being a year older. My parents wanted to do everything together, pretty much like twins, so they sent us to the same school at the same time. The early school years were a nightmare for me. Teachers constantly put me and other kids down because they only focused on the gifted children, like my brother Winston. I hated school. I never looked forward to go, but there's something I hated even more than school, and that was my house. At home, it was always all about Winston. What does Winston want to eat? What does Winston want to watch? Where does Winston want to go? He got to choose everything. And not to mention, he had all of the affection from our parents. Such behavior was not just from my parents, however. It was also from the rest of our family. My grandparents and uncles clearly preferred Winston over me, and got him the best toys. And you might think I'm complaining a lot, but I'm certainly not exaggerating. My nickname given to me by my own family was the non-gifted one. Yeah, believe that. And some might think this is funny or not a big deal, but can you imagine how a 5-year-old feels about it? And how things like that can totally mark you or destroy your self-esteem. Luckily for me, times changed, and once Winston and I started high school, things got better for me. I became the most popular student. I was friends with everybody and got invited everywhere. It was great. And at home, well, things didn't change much. My parents still paid more attention to my brother. But as many other teenagers, I didn't care about my parents' opinions anymore. In fact, I started to take advantage of their negligence. I could do whatever I wanted. I could go out until late, or sleep in other places, and they didn't even seem to notice. And school days were kind of cool. You're probably thinking that because I was popular, I was a complete dumbass, but I wasn't like that. I was an average student. I had normal grades, sometimes good grades, sometimes bad ones, but I was okay. I was also very talented in mechanics, sports, and technology. I just wasn't likely to win a Nobel Prize or something like my brother. And you're probably wondering if my brother was so smart, why wasn't he at the university? Well, as I mentioned before, my parents wanted us to do everything together. Plus, they wanted my brother to be with someone, for he had no friends. I mean, I can't recall a single friend, quite honestly. But by the time Winston and I finished school, he could have applied to any university he wanted, and I bet my ass he would have been accepted. But he applied to one that was close to our house, so that he could still live with our parents. My parents, of course, well, they encouraged this. And I got accepted to a community college and was working a part-time job at a local fast food shop. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I started feeling bad for my brother. and I always thought he was going to go to one of those places for prodigies like Harvard or Cambridge, but instead, he was going to a regular university, way under his level, and he was staying in our shitty place, and on top of that, he never had a girlfriend or even a friend. I stopped resenting Winston. Still, though, he was annoying, but I understood he was just smart and nothing was really his fault. It was the fault of the adults who didn't treat us equally and overprotected him. And seeing Winston was basically seeing any nerd from a TV show. He looked straight out of a TV comedy show, to be honest. Well, I wanted to help him, and after all, he was my brother. During our last summer before going to college and university, I encouraged Winston to go out a little more. He didn't have anyone to go out with, and didn't even know where to go in order to have fun or meet people, so I kindly offered him to go out with me. We started hanging out in different places. We went to the beach, the arcade, the mall. We even went to parties, but he didn't seem to enjoy so much. And my friends, even if they tried, they didn't seem to like him. There was something about Winston we all started to notice. Something we never noticed before. Maybe it's because no one ever spent enough time with him. Not even myself. It was actually quite scary. It was always obvious that he was weird, but actually dealing with him, we discovered he was even worse. It's almost as if his interactions with other humans were scripted, and as if he were playing a role. He constantly asked inappropriate questions, and commented weird things such as, how much blood do you think we've got inside? And what would happen if someone is beheaded? Things like that. We tried to ignore his comments and just kind of acted nice towards him. But one day, we were at the beach with my friends. It was a normal Sunday, which meant the beach was full of people. We were thirsty, so we sent Winston to go get us some drinks. He went to do so, but after 10 minutes of not appearing, we started to worry. I was particularly worried about my brother, for he didn't seem to socially function as normal people. My friends tried to calm me down, telling me he was probably taking long because the place was so full. However, after 25 minutes of him not appearing, we all started getting worried. We started looking for Winston all over the beach. We spent like an hour looking for him, and we even informed the lifeguard, and he helped us, but there were no signs of him. And I wanted to go to the police to ask for help, but I was only wearing my bathing shorts and all my friends were wearing the same, so we decided to go to our houses and get changed. And once I got to my place, I was going to see if Winston happened to be there, and if not, I would speak to my parents about it, and we'll start looking for him or call the authorities or whatever that was necessary. As soon as I arrived, I asked my parents if Winston was home. They told me he wasn't. My head started racing faster as I explained to my parents what was going on, and they immediately freaked out. And I think they literally jumped out of the couch and put their shoes on while saying we had to go look for him. And suddenly, the door opened, and it was my brother. He got home with a smile on his face, and he seemed carefree and happy. "My dear, where have you been?" my mom asked. "Oh, I'm sorry. I was hanging out with some friends and I lost track of time," Winston replied to her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Friends? What kind of friends? You left us alone at the beach," I said to him. "I'm sorry. I was going to get our drinks, but then I met a group of people and they seemed really cool," he said. "You must know them. They went to school with us as well," Winston added. My parents stopped the conversation/argument there. They were happy that Winston supposedly had friends. He claimed he was going out that night, and my parents told me I had to go out with him. Winston didn't seem too happy about it. And that evening, before going out, my brother came to my room and begged me not to go out with him. He said he didn't need a babysitter and wanted to hang out with his own group. And well, I accepted that because it was a huge progress for him. And so I stayed home that night. And later on, I heard a noise about 2 a.m. So I got out of bed and went to see what was going on. I saw Winston going to the bathroom. He was walking very fast, and he had blood on his t-shirt. "Hey, you okay?" I asked him. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied. "Why is there blood on your clothes?" "Oh, it's just one of my strong nosebleeds. Anyway, I'm showering and going to bed," he said as he rushed to the bathroom and closed the door. The next morning, we were all having our family breakfast, and we saw on the local news that a group of young people had been killed. It was a total of 4. It was also informed that they had gone to the same high school as Winston and I. The reason behind the murder wasn't clear, but they had been killed in a tragic, violent manner. They were in somebody's house when they were killed, and police had no clue about the killer. My parents, of course, told us to be careful going out. I agreed, as I was in shock because such things never happened in our small town. However, Winston was oddly quiet. After seeing the news and finishing breakfast, I went to my room and called my friend Michael. He told me the ones that had been killed were actually the 4 most popular people at her school. Football players Danny and Christian, and cheerleaders Monica and Anna. And I was totally surprised. It was definitely a tragedy. And I sometimes hung out with them, and regardless of being popular and a little arrogant, they were not that bad. In fact, they were pretty good people. Michael also told me something completely horrific. Apparently, they had been beheaded. I was utterly disturbed. I mean, what kind of psycho would do something like that? Michael and I arranged to go to the funeral, and as soon as I finished the call with him, I went to speak with my brother. Anna, one of the dead girls, had always been my brother's crush, so I had to tell him it had been her. To my surprise, when I told him about it, he didn't seem bothered, not even about the fact that Anna had died. And I asked him if he wanted to go to the funeral with me, but he said no. Anyway, I respected that. That's fine, maybe he didn't want to see her. When I was getting ready to go to the funeral the very next day, I realized something. The night of the murders, my brother had come home covered in blood. Not to mention, he said he had been hanging out with some people from our school. I was too curious and couldn't let that go. I went back to his room, and he was reading one of his science books. I asked him who he was with the night of the murder, and he said he was embarrassed to admit it, but that he had been hanging out with Lorna. She was a very nerdy, rather chunky girl with thick glasses who went to high school with us, and I never really noticed her speaking to my brother. But they were both nerds and took the same classes and were in the same clubs. He told me he went on a secret date with her, but was too shy to admit it. And I was actually kind of happy that my brother was finally hanging out with someone and, of course, possibly dating a girl. Well, regardless of her appearance. And of course, I was relieved that my brother had nothing to do with the murder of those people. And I even started to think how stupid I had been thinking Winston, who couldn't even do a push-up, could kill someone. At the funeral, I spoke to everybody, including my closest group of friends, the ones that had been with my brother and I lately. One of my friends told me how creeped out he was when he heard the victims had been beheaded and how it reminded him of Winston's questions. And I couldn't help but thinking he was right. Winston had been asking and commenting lots of weird things lately, and decapitation was one of his topics. I started to feel upset. I went to the bathroom to wash my face, and on my way out, I found Lorna, the girl my brother was apparently dating. "Hey, Lorna," I said to her.
Hi, Stephen. Are you talking to me?"
she asked in a very confused tone as she fixed her glasses. "Yeah, I am. How are you doing? How's everything with my brother? I'm glad to know you guys have been seeing each other," I said to her.
"Oh, I think you're confusing me, Stephen. I haven't been going out with your brother lately. In fact, we barely spoke in school," she said.
And I was surprised. My brother had lied to me. But why would he? Well, unless he were the one. I rushed home running like never before, and once I got there, everything was so dark. All the lights were off, and I started calling for my brother and my parents. And in the middle of the dark, I stepped on something. It seemed something big and solid. I grabbed my phone to have some light and pointed to my feet where I saw my dad. He was on the floor, with the exception that his head was not there, only his body. I screamed, and then the lights turned on. My brother was on the other extreme of the room, holding my dad's and my mom's heads. He not only killed our parents, he had also killed the other people the night before. I was in shock. I noticed my mom's body was close to my brother. He put the heads on his old school bag, and I wanted to do something, but he told me not to move. And once he had what he wanted in his bag, he left. Just like that, he turned around and left the fucking room. Well, after a few moments, I called the authorities. They tried to find my brother for years, but could never track him down, and it's almost like he vanished. I definitely think my brother snapped. I just wish we would have seen it coming before all this happened. Though, I secretly have to admit, everything's so much better without my family.